everyone. Where do I start? Where do I begin? So I guess if you just want to watch, art content, then maybe put this video on mute if you're not interested in current news events, because I know many of you come here for tension release and for stress release, and the last thing you want to hear is anything that might be upsetting or creating extra stress to your life. So I totally get that, but I wanted to touch on something that is quite close to my heart, and I thought it would be a good time to do it now. I will start making art and then sort of talk at the same time, just kind of expressing maybe how I feel through art, or maybe trying to just, create art as I'm talking. So I don't know how it will end up. I will be just grabbing things from my desk. But I'll start by saying that so many of you have picked up on a bit of an accent and you found it quite interesting, and I had so many questions and comments throughout the duration of my channel where I come from. I was born in Ukraine. I was born in Odessa, and by the way, I'm not in the camera today, not in front of the camera, simply because I look a mess, I feel a mess, I feel quite emotional, and I just don't want it to be a disaster of a video. But I had to, say something or touch on it. So I thought better thing to just, be here at my desk. So I was born in Ukraine, and this is where both my parents were born. We all are from Odessa. And there's actually a tiny bit of Russian in me as well. So on my mother's side, her father was Russian. So there is a little bit of Russian in me too. It's never been easy to exactly explain what my cultural heritage is, because firstly, we left Ukraine because of my dad's business. We left it in like before, end of 80s, and just before the Soviet Union breakdown happened. It was, I basically grew up with Russian TV, Russian news, Russian films and poetry and literature. Everything was Russian. I never spoke a word of Ukrainian language. And when I was 5, we left for a few years, and then we came back when the breakdown happened of the Soviet Union. So no longer were we part of it, we were sort of separate, and then they started introducing Ukrainian language in school. And I remember this was my least favorite subject, because I felt that the language it didn't sound good to me. I don't know why, but it might make a little bit more sense as I continue with my story. You might wonder when the art will begin, but hopefully I'll just start. I don't know if this looks a mess. It will look a mess. I'm not in the best frame of mind today. So I'm filming this video on March the 1st, so the beginning of spring. Maslenitsa started yesterday, in case you wonder what on earth that is. That is like a pancake day in a whole week to celebrate spring. And also there is sort of, in the olden days, there was an activity to think about what to do every day of the week. And then there were things like how should I say, you would maybe go on a slate. It still was snowy and cold during that time in Russia or Ukraine. And so basically that's what people used to do to celebrate the beginning of the spring. Also, it's the last week where you are allowed to eat dairy. So this week it begins with not sort of, it's like fasting a little bit. So you're not allowed to eat meat. And then for quite a long time, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 21 days, you will continue not eating meat, but also adding the eggs and dairy to it. So this is the last week basically to celebrate eating that, and that's why you eat a lot of pancakes and a lot of things like that, because you won't be eating it for a little while. And then the last day of the week, which will be Sunday, is the Sunday of forgiveness. So you're supposed to forgive people. And then the Monday after, you're supposed to have like a bathing day. Well, it's not a whole day, but you know, traditionally you'd have banya, which is like, you know, like a kind of like a sauna where you go and hit yourself with sort of dry leaves and kind of cleanse yourself. And after you have forgiven, you want to get rid of all that negativity in your life and just sort of feel like you're having a fresh start. And so that's what Maslenitsa is in a few words. Okay, so I stopped talking about moving back to Odessa for a couple of years. And what happened was the language. Yeah, so I didn't really fancy Ukrainian language at all. But what I didn't realize yet is that I had like a special connection to languages. So later in my life, I learned German, and I absolutely loved that language. It was very logical. I had no problems getting on with it at all. And also English as well. So those both languages, I had no problems at all. As I was in a college at one point, I also did Italian for a couple of years. So I loved that language. And before even that, in school, I tried French. I absolutely loved French. And later in my life, I tried to pursue it a little bit more, but I just found it very, very complicated. The pronunciation of the sound you make, like you have maybe 5 letters to make one sound or something like that. So it was just very complicated for me. I don't know, it just never clicked properly, although I absolutely adore the language. I could listen to it forever, just, you know, going to Paris, sitting in one of those cafes and absorbing all of that goodness. So yeah, so that's what happened. And then, goodness, my thoughts are so scattered, but I'm sure you understand, given the current climate. Let's see. I'll just let it dry a little bit while I talk. So I went to now basically a Ukrainian school, and I had a really hard time adjusting to that. We still were taught lessons in Russian, but we had a separate class for Ukrainian language. So that was that. So 2 years of that, and I was quite happy when my dad announced that we will be moving to Hamburg. I was so excited. At that time I was 11, and we basically moved to Hamburg and stayed there until I finished school. And I think my dad's contract ran out, and it was time to think where would be the next stop. And at the same time as we moved to Hamburg, around the same or similar time, my uncle moved to London. So when my dad's contract ended, we didn't think we wanted to return back to Ukraine, because we just at that point didn't see ourselves wanting to live in Ukraine, if that makes sense. I mean, moving at that time when we moved in the early 90s to Hamburg, it felt like such a big change, but in a good way. And we adjusted and adopted so quickly to it. and it really felt like a really comfortable life compared to what you could have in Ukraine at that time. We then, well, my dad thought about it and decided that he wanted to move to London. And that's what we did. And basically I ended up going to university and studying German. And it was quite an intense degree. I was studying medieval German and translating and doing all sorts of things, which after a few years I just realized this was not quite me. I felt that it was a very dry degree and I didn't have a sense of passion and, you know, excitement about it. So I then transferred to film and media and studied film and media for another few years, and that was so much fun, so much fun. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of my story. Yeah, so this is where I stayed since we moved to London, and we stayed there, gosh, up to when my son was born. We moved to a countryside, so it's not too far from London. We still can quite comfortably make, you know, day trips or visit London when we wanted to. But it is just so much more chilled and just completely different lifestyle. And I think after the hustle and bustle in London, and I had absolutely the best time in London. I loved the city when I was much younger, and I had, you know, no care in my life, and I could go to all the galleries, all the latest exhibitions, and it was fun. I had a really good time there. But of course, when I became a mother, my priorities changed quite a lot, and I wanted somewhere really quiet, very chilled, and all of that. We're quite close to a lot of farm shops where we can buy really nice meat and organic foods and vegetables and fruits and things like that. We can go pick strawberries. I mean, it's just a very different life to London, and I appreciate it a lot. So yeah, so that's basically what happened. So I am a bit of a linguist, and therefore, you know, I had this, till this day, I don't speak Ukrainian, I don't understand the language, I speak Russian, and still all of my bringing up and my cultural aspect are all in Russian. So it was very difficult to me, or for me, to understand at which point do I suddenly become, you know, Ukrainian, and what is it like to be a Ukrainian? How is it different to being Russian? Because in my mind, since I was little, I thought we are all the same. And of course, with the current situation, how there's so much hatred, and yeah, with everything that's going on, is just a very difficult, obviously, thing to understand. And yeah, so yeah, my parents moved back to Odessa, goodness, about 9 years ago, I think. I carried on staying. I never moved back to Odessa. This is, you know, my home now. I could never see myself going back to live in Ukraine because I just wasn't connected to it anymore after so many years living outside of Ukraine. It just, yeah. But of course, I since I was little, since we moved out, immigrated from Ukraine, I have every year since then, over summer holidays, school holidays, we would go for like a couple of months to Odessa, and it just was part of my life. And even when I grew up, I still continued going every single summer to Odessa. And the obviously the last 2 years, we haven't gone. And the last time I was in Odessa with my son, he was 3, now he's 6. And it is quite sad. He keeps asking about my parents, and he remembers they bought him this kind of like a, you know, like a Jeep car, of which you have you know, you can control it with like joysticks or whatever it's called, and he would, like, my granddad would drive him around his lawn, around the trees and things like that. So he remembers all of that. He even remembers still to this day the song that was like in this car. There were a few songs, and there was one of his favorite songs, and he still, when he hears it on the radio, he kind of like, he knows of it. He still can recognize it. So it's all sweet and emotional memories, and we haven't been able to go out there yet, and my parents as well, so we haven't seen each other for like 2 years, but of course we Skype a lot, pretty much, like, you know, right now it's like daily, and quite almost daily otherwise as well, but it's not the same, obviously. And then this happened. So the irony is, of course, on Thursday last week, we had the great news here in UK that basically the you know, the pandemic has ended. The restriction, oh my goodness, can you see what I'm doing? I swear to God, I have not intended this, but there is the blue and the yellow, which is the Ukrainian flag. Oh yeah. So yeah, we we had the great news that the pandemic has ended, and you know, one part of you wants to celebrate it, but of course at the same time, on, you know, days and I think almost weeks before that, we were kind of knowing that something not great is coming, and to do with the Ukraine thing. And then the same day, on Thursday, it was announced in Odessa that I'm talking about Odessa because this is where my parents are now. And, you know, I don't know about other cities, whether this was the same. So basically it was announced that the airports are shut down. So my parents no longer could leave. If they wanted to, they'd have to, I guess, drive or something. But it just became scarier and scarier to the point where it felt like they're safer if they stay where they are. I mean, thank goodness for now it's quiet in Odessa. But it is devastating because obviously the rest of Ukraine or parts of Ukraine are in a very, very terrible situation right now. And I just watched the news just before I decided to do this video, and I was watching, and at one point I just had to switch it off because I could feel I'm feeling worse. Yeah, so basically that's the situation, and you know, we are just praying and trying to think and hope and, you know, send all the good thoughts that this will end very soon. And there is a saying that, you know, I would say during the or I actually learned to say during the 2 years of pandemic, I had a really hard time, like a lot of people, majority of people, mentally. It was a big struggle at times, but I started up doing this sort of yoga. I was introduced to this lovely yoga teacher, and she is based in Cambridge, and she would sort of create these dedicated yoga videos for me. I would sort of say which part of my body was hurting that week, and then for a month she was creating a video every month to just target those aches, and she taught me this phrase, which was and this shall pass too. And in the toughest moments I would say that to me like a mantra, and it really kind of helped me over time. And that's what I'm trying to do now as well. So, you know, everything that's horrible comes to an end, and I'm just hoping the end will be very soon. And that's all we can do, really. So yeah, I hope this sort of answered a little bit of you know, the questions you had before about my accent, and you know, yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but I think I will keep it at that. One part of me wants to add a little bit of something, but I just don't know. I tend to, when I add some pencil marks, I tend to just not kind of be happy with it after all. But I'm just going to scribble a little bit of something. Yeah, I think that's probably okay. Maybe a little bit out of here. Like that. And one little one here. All right, so that's it. So I hope, I don't know what I hope, but I hope this whole thing will stop. The war has to stop, and yeah, I mean, yeah. What else? What else can I say? I don't know what else I can say. I'll try to finish on a slightly positive note, which is I got some new colors from the Luminance pencils, and I absolutely adore them. They came from, I think there is a set. I'll try to put it here anyway. There's a set on Jackson's that basically is curated by an artist, and I went through the list and I noticed that I had most of the colors already, and these were the few colors I didn't have. And then actually when I went to order, I just wanted the ultramarine pencil, but when I saw her curated set, it really appealed to me. I thought, you know, these colors are quite lovely and light and kind of springy really. And yeah, so I decided to give them a go. One thing I forgot is a yellow orange. Maybe it was out of stock or something, so I'll have to have a look at that. But that is it for today. I think I will do a separate video where I will swatch out the colors. There's a few more things. I'm taking an online course now just to keep my sanity, and it really helps with diverting my attention to something else at the minute. And yeah, so the course I'm taking is actually, I wish this was water soluble. Looking at it now, where is my water soluble graphite? Is this one it? Yeah, Technalo 3B. So I'm just going to go over it and then wash it out with a bit of water. What was I saying? Goodness me. There you go. So just adding a bit of something here, and I will do the same maybe on here. Yeah, so this kind of connects it a bit more rather than just having the graphite sitting there. And then I think I will leave this one as it is. So what was I saying? Oh yes, so I'm taking an online course right now, which I'm really, really loving. And in there, it's basically the same style that I'm working with. The artist is using exactly the same products that I love, but just a couple of colors that I don't have yet. So I will be placing an order maybe today, and then I think I will swatch everything together. This is where I'm going with this. Okay, thank you if you're still there. Your support helps as always. Your, you know, kind comments are very helpful, and I just appreciate you being here. And let's just send love and good positive thoughts and light to Ukraine, and may this horrible time end very, very soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon.